Okay, we've all seen these videos before. Every single time a company that isn't GoPro puts out an action camera, there's a flurry of comparisons and reviews that come out, all trying to answer the same old question. Has that company, in this case it's Insta360, but many others have come before, has that company done enough to dethrone the almighty GoPro? And pretty much always the answer is no. No, they haven't. Nobody can do it.
But after spending days testing out the new Insta360 One RS, we can confidently tell you that it's a little bit different this time. The One R came out over 2 years ago.
Can't believe it's been 2 years.
Yeah. And it really differentiated itself from the competition by being a modular camera setup.
Yeah.
That basically means that the battery, the body, the lenses, they're all interchangeable and they swap out really easily, as you can see here.
Yeah, so on the hardware side of things, they really tried to give people everything that you could possibly want, having essentially two completely different type of action cameras in one setup. So that was all great, but the actual finished product, the video and the audio, just wasn't up to snuff with their competitors. So they've come back 2 years later off of the One R, now they have the One RS, and they're trying to take that modular style and ramp up all of the shortcomings that they had with the One R. That was their idea for this anyways. So there's a lot new going on with this camera system despite looking very similar to the One R. There's a lot to talk about.
So the Insta360 RS is actually really difficult to compare just to one camera. We're gonna actually compare it to both flagships, the GoPro Max and the 10 Black, to see how it stacks up. So we headed out to Sunshine, our local ski hill, and once we got up to the top, we immediately wanted to test the stabilization.
So we stuck these two competitors uncomfortably close to each other and hit the slopes.
Okay, I'm just gonna do it.
And you can see right away that the One RS is a bit cooler in auto white balance, but both look pretty good.
Okay, looks like we're about to lose the sun. And it's run number 1.
For the digital stabilization, you can see that both are super smooth, but you do get more movement in the roll axis on the One RS.
Oh, my helmet's not done up.
And with these settings, the GoPro has a bit of a wider field of view, but that also comes with a lot more distortion, so it kind of depends on what you're after. Keep in mind that both of them are set to their highest stabilization setting, and so I would say the stabilization on the One RS looks more like the standard hypersmooth stabilization rather than the hypersmooth boost that the GoPro's in. We did also notice an occasional stabilization glitch with the One RS, but we are on pre-release firmware, so hopefully that'll be fixed with an update soon.
This time around, the stabilization is built in right to the camera, so you don't have to do anything externally to make it work. So that's nice and easy.
We don't have a lot of data on, or actually no info at all on the sensor that they put into this, other than the fact that they say that it's a 1/2-inch sensor. And you can actually tell, even just from the optics and the size of the lens, that's a big size difference between this and the Hero 10 Black. But here's the thing, from what I can tell, they put a bigger sensor into this camera, not to actually use the full sensor for the optics, but actually just so that you had more room to move around for image stabilization. And why that's really cool is that, if you take, say, the Hero 10 Black, it's got a fairly tiny sensor, and then in order to have that great digital stabilization, you have to crop way in on that already tiny sensor, and that just doesn't make for great image quality. So what this one's done is started with a much larger sensor and cropped in on that to be essentially what the full frame sensor would be on this had there been no digital stabilization applied. It's a 48 megapixel sensor, but obviously you don't use all 48 megapixels in video, it's just 4K, which is somewhere around 10 megapixel. But it can also do this 6K widescreen cinematic mode.
It's beautiful.
It looks great. Here, I'll show you, we took some clips here. The light when we did shoot that 6K widescreen footage was pretty ideal for any action camera, but I do have to say, I threw it up on the big monitor, and that's usually when things really fall apart with action camera video, and it just looked really nice. Like you can see on in here, there's YouTube compression, and it's not gonna look quite how it looks on our screen over there. I was just really impressed. Truly, truly impressed.
So while we were on the chairlift, we tested out the active HDR.
Little active HDR test. Seriously bright sun in behind. Degsy's in the shadow here, so.
And it's not actually outputting an HDR file, it just gives a little bit more of a balanced output. And so you can see that sun in the back and a really smooth gradient for the highlights, the absolute highlights of the image. But you can also see lots of data in the shadows too. So when you're in a really harshly lit environment, it seems to work pretty well. Yeah, so that's looking pretty good. And you should see some of the shots that we got a little bit later on the day, a couple minutes from now. But first, let's quickly go over form factor and compare that to the Hero 10.
They're pretty similar, but the advantage of the GoPro 10 Black is that it's already waterproof and it has a mount built in. For the Insta360 One RS, you actually have to put it into the case for it to be waterproof.
And to be able to mount it on anything.
It's actually backwards compatible, so you can actually use the Insta360 One RS with your 1R lens and with your 1R battery. Or if you had actually purchased the larger battery, it is still compatible with this camera.
Yeah. Like you were saying before off camera, like you were saying, like that's just kind of the way things should be. Like you should be able to use old things with the new things and continue on with it, right?
This
and
is
still
how,
see some of the benefits.
This is how all tech should be. This is how phones should be. This is how laptops should be. As far as the usability of the screen goes, it was really easy to use. I actually had no issues, but it was interesting when I put it side by side to the GoPro 10 Black. The front-facing camera on the 10 Black is actually better than the only screen on the Insta360 RS. It's brighter, it has more detail. The 10 Black also has a large 2.27-inch screen, so you can preview photos and videos really easily.
So it's very apparent that Insta360 really wants you to be connecting it to your phone to preview things, to go through the footage, and not so much looking at it on the back screen of the camera, which for the most part is fine. Yeah. But sometimes, like when we were trying to film with a 6K widescreen, it would have been way nicer to have that larger screen on the back to be able to actually see what you're doing when the camera's on a pole like 4 feet away from you. Okay, real quick, and it's gonna be hard for me to make this quick because this, to me, is such a huge deal. They have put in a windproof mic cover. It's all built right in, and I'll do some close-up shots, but there's this little tiny hole for the mic, and if you look underneath, you can see that there's a bit of foam right there, and it does a really good job cutting down on that wind noise. I don't know why they call it windproof, because it's not, but it does a great job, and I'm super happy that any company out there has done it. So well done to Insta360 on that. If you're being super picky like me and you're covering it with all these little wind muffler things and you're isolating those channels and you're working on the audio, if you do all of those things, the GoPro still sounds a little tiny bit better. All right, now on to the really exciting part, for me anyways.
The 360 lens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, most people have seen the whole invisible selfie stick thing. It's very cool. It makes it look like the camera's just floating up in the sky. So we wanted to kind of take that to the next level. And so, well, just have a look.
And look out, everyone. There's a cool dude on the slopes. I'm sure everything will be just fine. Uh-oh, here comes another cool dude. Worth it.
Compared to the GoPro Max, and compared to anything else out there, you can't even tell where the images are being stitched together.
Yeah, it's very rare when you can actually see where the stitch is, versus the GoPro Max that I've used pretty extensively in very similar ways, and the stitching is not nearly as good, and there was no real way for me to fix that on the back end in the GoPro app.
And we tested out the deep track function where it locks in on the subject that you choose. It really followed, especially Ryan on a ski bike.
Yeah.
It really followed him really well. It would also reframe and zoom in and zoom out depending on where the subject was. So as we're skiing, you know, Ryan's going a different speed and I'm going a different speed and we're crossing over and we're trying to dodge people. And it just did a great job.
We need to talk about price.
So at the moment, that's really hard because we don't know what this is going to be priced at. But to truly compare prices to the GoPros, we would actually have to compare it to both the Max and the 10 Black. The Hero 10 Black is selling for $710 or $460 with a 1-year subscription.
The GoPro subscription.
And the GoPro Max is selling for $730 or $530 with a subscription.
Right.
And that comes to a total of $1,440 for both, in comparison to what might be about $650 Canadian for the Insta360 One RS.
And you get all the functionality of both of those cameras. Like, you know, we have so many people ask us what action cameras should they get, especially on the mountain biking side of things. And I'm never 100% sure what to tell them, but this is the very, very first time that I'm actually gonna say something that isn't GoPro. If somebody's asking for what 360 camera they should get, I'm gonna say the One RS, because it's got an incredible 360 camera that's better than the Hero Max in most ways. And also, if somebody's asking just for like general use action camera, I'm also going to say the One RS, because it is so close to the GoPro, and it also includes a 360 lens module, which is so fun to play with.
Huge.
So I guess that's it. Go and check out the Insta360 One RS, and GoPro, balls in your court.
Bye.
Well, we could just do a super quick, like, no, we don't even have to do anything. I can just end it on that.
Let's just end it like that.
GoPro, balls in your court. Video done.